of fate.
This is the way. Truth is, I am Iron Man.
Tells me when you'll remember this.
Happy New Year's 20 days later. Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optics Podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and as always, I'm joined by my partner in film, Devin, and today, this is our first ever recording of the new year. It has been crazy busy on my side. I apologize. I didn't really give an update during... Well, it's been almost like a month altogether, but I feel like we both needed it, especially me, just to kind of, brainstorm new ideas for the podcast this year and just figure out like where we want the podcast to go and whatnot. But there was a lot coming out towards the end of last year, and it was just darn near impossible to cover what we wanted to cover. And of course, we can't cover everything. That would be insane, but we are back here with the new year. There's going to be a few changes. I'm going to release a new, like an updated goals for the podcast this year as like a small little mini episode for everyone out there. But Devin, what's going on? How are you? Happy New Year. How was your New Year's?
Well, it was a solid New Year a few weeks ago now, but we're here now, getting used to 2025.
It's crazy, man. I feel like 2025 is going to be a good year. It just in general, I just feel like it is. I don't know why, but it just feels like, I don't want to say like my year, but I just feel like it's going to be a good year for a lot of people, a lot of friends, a lot of family, and all of that jazz.
Yeah, I sure hope so. I've been bringing in the new year with one Matt Murdock. I've been catching up on the Daredevil before the new one comes out.
Oh, see, I thought that you had already finished it. Are you on season 3?
So I watched the first season, so I'm working through 2 now, almost done with 2.
So once you're done with season 2...
I'm going Punisher next.
Okay, I was going to say you might want to go to Defenders, because even though it's like, street level Avengers, it ties the bridge between season 2 of Daredevil and then season 3. But Punisher is a good place to start too. So, because like if you watch, like let's say Punisher, is it 2 seasons of Punisher?
Yeah.
So like I can't remember from Punisher because it's been a while, but I do know if you jump from season 2 straight to season 3 of Daredevil, you'll be very lost. So you might have to either watch all of Defenders or just watch like a YouTube video recapping everything. That might actually be the way to go.
Yeah, I saw it's 8 episodes, so it's shorter than the others, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's 8 episodes. It doesn't really start getting interesting until I think episode 5 onward. So take that what you will, but I'm glad that you're diving into it. It's been so long since I watched The Punisher. It's been a very long time. I don't even remember what happened, but I liked what I remember at least. But how rude of me to actually forget or not mention what we're actually covering here today. So as our first episode of the new year, we're going to be, originally it was actually supposed to be Nosferatu, and it just didn't happen, again, with scheduling and whatnot. It's been very busy on my side, so I was like, I think this is when things are going to start dying down just a little bit, but like low-key, not really. So we were like, hey, let's ring in the new year with another horror film, and that is Wolfman by Universal. So we saw the trailer for this like a few months ago, and it was pretty interesting. Like, it was an interesting enough trailer to grab our attention and be like, hey, we should do this. A lot of creature features don't get released nowadays, but slowly but surely they are, as we've seen with Nosferatu and now with Wolfman. And we also had Renfield. Was that last year? The other vampire movie?
I think it might have been 2 years ago now.
Yeah. I think the big creature feature like renaissance or like revitalization started with Disney's, the horror special that they did, Werewolf by Night, from what I can remember at least.
I think Invisible Man was before that.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, that was I guess you can say that was it. But we've slowly but surely been seeing a lot of creature features come back through. I wouldn't really call Poor Things a creature feature, or I don't know, maybe it is kind of like a vamp of Frankenstein, but a different type of creature feature altogether. But as we have mentioned, there are a lot of creature features out there. So we're going to be giving our spoiler-free thoughts of Wolfman 2025. This runtime of this film is an hour and 43 minutes. So just shy of the hour 30 minutes altogether. But like I mentioned, we are going to be giving our spoiler-free thoughts on this. If you are new to the podcast, welcome. This is the Film Optus Podcast where, as I mentioned before, where non-critics, critics, and friends come to talk about all things film and television. We like to be like the everyman podcast. We like to offer a little bit of the pie to every bit of the audience out there. But without further delay, we're just going to jump right on into this one because I have a few things to say. So we will be right back after this introduction to Wolfman.
If anyone can hear me, please call someone to help. We were attacked by some kind of animal, and I think my husband was infected by it. He's not himself, and he can't talk. He doesn't seem to know he's sick, but if someone can hear what I'm saying, please help. Hello. That's him.
And we are back with our Wolfman review. Again, there's a lot of Wolfman movies out there. So this is, of course, Wolfman in parentheses 2025. The director of this film is Leigh Whannell, and writers include Leigh Whannell and Corbett Tuck, and stars Julia Garner, Leigh Whannell himself, and Christopher Abbott, just to name a few. And the synopsis is as follows. A family at a remote farmhouse is attacked by an unseen animal, but as the night stretches on, the father begins to transform into something unrecognizable. So, as I mentioned before, no spoilers here. This is going to be our quick thoughts, in a way, for Wolfman. Like I said before, Devin and I were very excited about this. It intrigued us enough to go see the movie. I literally just came back from the theater to see this film. So Devin actually saw it at an early screening earlier this week. Yeah. So I'm going to pass it over to Devin so he can give his spoiler-free thoughts, his initial reactions of Wolfman. Because from what I remember, you thoroughly enjoyed this one, but correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, I said it was the best movie of the year, which of course it was 2 weeks into the year. So take with that what you will, but that's what I said.
Yeah, it is what you said. No lies detected.
But yeah, going into this one, like you said, I know we had some excitement for this. I was trying to avoid trailers for the most part for this one. I just didn't want the creature designs to be spoiled for me, so I was trying to avoid the trailers. But I was sold going into it because I knew the director, Leigh Whannell. He also did The Invisible Man, which is one that we both really liked. He also did Upgrade a few years back, another great one. So he's been on a good run here of like sci-fi / horror type movies. So this is definitely a change of pace for him, where it's more so like grounded, just Wolfman. Like there's no technology involved really, just kind of back to the basics in a cabin surrounded by woods and just kind of classic horror. And so I think overall it was a pretty solid movie. I don't think it's quite as good as Invisible Man. Like it just doesn't have as much of the scares that one had, but I do like the story overall. I like how Invisible Man was kind of like a relationship trauma movie, and then this one's more so like a parental trauma movie. I think it's a good like companion piece to go with Invisible Man. They are both Universal monsters, so it makes sense to kind of build off of what you started a few years ago. I think overall the cast did a good job. I think the design of the wolf wolf. I guess there are multiple that we could discuss, but the main wolf, I think it was solid. Like, it didn't blow me away, but it didn't disappoint me. I think there were others that I thought looked a little bit better in this movie specifically. But there are really cool ideas in this one. Specifically, there's one scene where there's a creature in the attic, and I think that was very clever how they did that. And there's also some cool like wolf vision scenes that they kind of threw in there just to see like what the Wolfman is seeing from his perspective. And I thought that was a really cool way to just display how he's feeling in certain moments around the people that he loves. Definitely has some issues. Like, I think they had some off-screen events happen a few too many times. Like, I feel like they were trying to save the reveal of the wolf too late into the movie, where they weren't showing much in the first half. Like, there's some stuff that happens off-screen that I would have liked to see. It's like some wolf attacks and some just overall, just the more wolves would have been cool. But
yeah, I would actually have to agree. I think you touched on a lot of interesting points. I did watch the first trailer for this. I never saw the second official trailer for it. I think the first trailer is around like a minute and like 11 seconds. So it's not like a lot that they show, but just coming out of this movie, I thought it was pretty solid. Like, it's like a middle of the road film for me, because you have someone like Julia Garner, who did like a phenomenal job playing the wife, of course. There's the first, I would say, maybe 10 minutes of this film. I think it sets it up very, very well. And then you have the rest of the family. Of course, there's only a few people in this movie. Of course, you have Ginger, played by Matlida Firth. And then you have Blake, the father, played by Christopher Abbott himself. And I think for everything that was, for a small cast like this, I think it was a great creature feature. Like you said, it is back to the basics. There's like the Halloween / like Scream references with, pulling knives out of drawers and things of that nature. But there's something about the movie where this one kind of just ends. But I like what you touched on when you were talking about for The Invisible Man, that was more of like a relationship trauma, versus this is more like parental trauma when it comes to generations, how the generation before can affect the previous, the current generation, and accidentally imprint, no pun intended, but kind of pun intended, that onto, their offspring indirectly. And I think there's a great line in this movie about parents accidentally protecting their kids like too much, to where the fact that, hey, I want to protect you, no harm's going to come to you, but then the harm actually comes from the parent themselves, whether it's intentional or not. Most of the time it's not, but in this case it was definitely unintentional for this family, for the father and the daughter. But I wish there was like a little bit more of the relationship between the mother and the father, like obviously like between Charlotte, played by Julia Garner, and Blake, played by Chris Abbott. I feel like they had really good chemistry, but I
think that's the main issue, is it's a really short one. Like, it says hour 43, but I felt even shorter than that. Like, I feel like they definitely could have gone a little bit deeper into the relationships between the mother and father, and also the mother and daughter as well. Because they did a great job of showing the father-daughter relationship and just kind of the love that they had between each other, but we didn't get much between the rest of that triangle.
Absolutely. And it kind of sucks, because I feel like, we spent at least the first 10 minutes with Blake as a child and him dealing with his father. And then it moves on to Blake 30 years later, and then he has a daughter. And things kind of just are what they are. Blake is kind of like down in the dumps. He's not as happy as he thinks that he should be. And obviously going back to his father's cabin and rediscovering past traumas, I guess you could say. But it's weird, because the length of this movie, like you said, is around like an hour 43 minutes. But it felt longer than that. And I think there was something about And maybe it was a creature reveal because I feel like throughout the entire movie, they kind of just gave you glimpses of the Wolfman. And then it eventually, you see everything in its glory. But it took so long to get there that I was like, okay, like how long are they going to stay in this location? How long are they going to stay in that location? So I think Leigh Whannell, and I apologize for butchering his name earlier, I think Leigh did a great job of showing the metamorphosis of human to Wolfman or werewolf, if you might say. Because it's, I feel like Wolfman and werewolf, they're similar but different. Because you see like a lot of different adaptations of werewolf, like such as like obviously like Harry Potter, or even for any gamers out there, if you've played The Quarry, they have their own version of like a werewolf, but it doesn't really look like a werewolf. It looks like a giant hairless rat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it feels like Wolfman's more feral, like more like vicious, I guess.
Yeah, it seems like that is the Wolfman was like the original concept, or like, hey, this is like, you could tell that like it's still a man, but he has wolf-like features. I think a werewolf is literally just a man becoming a wolf, not like Twilight, but but that was pretty interesting. Just all together, I did like the design. I'm pretty sure that was practical, at least from what like it looked like it was practical. I could be wrong with the design of the Wolfman.
It looked like it, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely did. So I was fairly surprised with that, like to be completely honest. So it's like, hey, like that was a great nod to be like, hey, we're going back to a creature feature where it's just, people trying to survive the night. And then the movie kind of just ends, but I feel like the ending of the movie should have been better because I feel like it does just, okay, like, we're done. It's daylight and, the survivors are the survivors, and then you just go about your day. But I don't know. What did you think about the ending? Because I felt like it kind of just abruptly just said, hey, like we're done. And that was it.
Yeah, I think the ending could have been improved upon if they had spent more time, like getting us more background on the characters and just getting us accustomed to these characters, spending more time with them. Like, I feel like if we had gotten more time with the mom and daughter throughout the movie, the ending could have been a little bit more impactful. I feel like we just kind of got left short on that part where, just like 10 or 15 minutes more would have been pretty big deal for this movie. Just kind of getting some more of the characters involved.
I agree. And like looking through the trivia for like IMDb, it looks like this was a reimagining of the 1941 film The Wolfman, which I've never seen, but I assumed, but I wasn't entirely sure, but I'm glad that they were able to confirm that. But Julia Garner actually interviewed working mothers during this whole process about societal pressures put on women, and suggested that her character go through the 7 stages of grief after reading books on grief and loss. But I feel like we never really got a lot of that. Like you just said, it's, it is very not mother-daughter, but it is very father-daughter focus. And the mother is there, and the mother, Julia Garner, like her character mentions that, oh, our daughter likes you more than me because I'm working all the time.
Yeah, it's definitely part of the story that they have a disconnect, but I just feel like they could have shown more between the three of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's weird because, with Leigh, he's well known in the horror genre where he's like the co-creator of both the Saw and Insidious films. So I feel like it's a good film. It's just, I guess, talking about it a little bit more, we're kind of like talking about the potential that it could have. But from what the film that we got, I thought it was cool. It's just, I feel like they took a little bit more time to shroud everything in mystery when it came to the werewolf. I was like, okay, we know kind of sort of what it looks like, so let's kind of just get there instead of spending, I don't know, maybe 30 to 45 minutes of this super slow like metamorphosis transformation, which was cool. You had mentioned when it came to how the senses of a wolfman come to be. It's very, it was pretty awe-inspiring to see, and the way that Leigh was able to portray that on screen, I thought that was awesome. It's just, I feel like it took them a little bit too long, but I did feel like, the family was in danger to a point. It's just, I don't know, something was missing, and I think it is the depth of the relationship between the entire family instead of it just being 2 out of 3.
Yeah, that's definitely the main thing that I think was missing. And I think if there was more of it, it could have improved the ending, just had more impact.
So would you have watched like an extra, like maybe 20 minutes of this film? Or do you think that they should have cut out the beginning? Because the beginning was very good. I was like, okay, the suspense is building. You're trying to figure out what this creature is. And I think they did a great job in, like, I guess you can say the quote unquote flashback in the beginning of the film, where it's like, hey, you can kind of sort of see the creature, but you don't really see it. But I feel like that same concept was applied through maybe 80-90% of the film.
Yeah, I definitely would have taken more runtime, because to me it felt like it was short. Like I felt like I looked down when it was over and I was like, oh wow, that was really short. I looked down at my watch and I was like, oh wow.
Yeah.
And looking back at it, The Invisible Man was 2 hours and 4 minutes in comparison. So that's an extra 20 minutes we got with those characters. Maybe that's why the movie felt like it had so much more impact at the end.
That is true. Yeah. And I feel like the relationships in Invisible Man, it really was just about one couple. But here it's like you're trying to balance, an entire family survival. But yeah, I think another extra 20 minutes would have helped, and maybe just cut out the flashback and kind of just go straight into it, or like maybe a shorter flashback.
I mean, I'm just fine with adding 20 minutes. Just get it to 2 hours.
Yeah, get it to 2 hours. Yeah, that is true. So they'd be like maybe 13, 15 minutes altogether. But I think it is a well-made movie. We don't see a lot of practical effects.
Yeah, I did confirm in the trivia that it is prosthetics and practical.
Okay, yeah, and that's what I thought. It looked amazing, but yeah, like you were saying, when it comes to the transformation, the metamorphosis from man to wolfman, it was pretty cool to see like the other side. There was a certain, I guess, like ability or aspect I thought was going to happen, but we'll talk about it off air. That just didn't happen. I was quite hurt by it. It wasn't hitting me as much as I thought it was going to, but. Let's get into our final thoughts and our ratings here. Devin, what are your final thoughts and ratings for Wolfman?
Yeah, final thoughts. I think it's a solid entry into the Universal Monster movie verse that is potentially building, but I guess we'll see how this one does. I think it's off to a bit of a rough start in the box office.
Yeah.
It had about a $25 million budget, so it's got some work to do to recoup that. But I think it's a solid movie. Like, there's nothing crazy bad about it. Like, sure, there's some things that could be improved, but there's definitely a lot of cool ideas that are in this one too, like we mentioned. And I think it definitely stands out in that area. And I think it could be a lot better, but at the end of the day, I think it's still like a solid 70 overall. Like, has its issues, but I enjoyed it the whole time. I think it's a classic, just safe, solid monster movie.
I couldn't agree more. Honestly, I was going to give this a 70 out of 100 as well, because much for like what you were saying, it for what it is, like the cut that we got, like it is a good, like a solid creature feature film. It's just, I think we were hoping for a little bit more when it came to the familial bonds between these three characters all together. But even though the ending, I can't say it was lackluster, it's just like, hey, like we got to wrap this up. Like, daybreak is coming, and I thought something was going to happen at the end, but I guess not. So maybe that's the difference between a wolfman and a werewolf all together. I'm not sure if they're like synonymous or whatnot, but in my mind, I feel like they're just like a little bit different. But yeah, I would definitely agree with your thoughts there. It's, it was well written. I love the chemistry between all three characters, especially the daughter and the
I love the
father,
where they would touch the forehead and
yeah,
say what you're thinking.
Yep, say what you're thinking. But this entire film, it kind of had like that eerie vibe to it. And I think they did a great job of, the suspense. The jump scares weren't bad either. Like you think it's going to happen in one place and it doesn't. And then they kind of throw you for a loop because jump scares can be very tough to pull off nowadays.
Yeah, this one had some subtle ones in there too, where it's not like jumping out at you, but it's where you spot something in the background that you're not expecting.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like he really knows how to set the tone. But I think, I just wish we would have seen a little bit more of Wolfman himself. But he is throughout there, just sprinkled around. So it really is just, survive the night until morning, and we will, live to see another day. But with all that said, so Devin gave this movie a 70 out of 100, and so did I. If you are new here to the show, we usually give the median score in between both of our combined scores. But since Devin and I both gave this a 70 out of 100, is this going to remain at a 70 out of 100 for Wolfman? Definitely worth watching, I think, if you are a horror fan or just a fan of, creature features in general, of this Monsterverse-esque, not necessarily a Monsterverse, more just like one-off films like The Invisible Man and, of course, Wolfman, things of that nature. But Blumhouse still continues to blow it out of the water. As always, when it comes to their horror films, some are better than others, but this is still a solid watch. So definitely go watch this in theaters because it really should be seen on the silver screen. But with all that said, that does conclude today's episode. If you enjoy what you heard on today's episode, subscribe to our podcast on your preferred podcast platform of choice. Make sure to follow us on Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram, Twitter, all that social media garbage at Film Optics. That is Optics with an X. And remember to share an episode of our podcast with a fellow movie lover. Whether it be your mother, your brother, or a significant other, spread the love for the Film Optics podcast with a movie lover in need. And as for what's next coming up on the show, we are going to be covering Severance Season 2, but we're going to be waiting until the end of the season once the season finale hits, because again, it is very hard to cover every single show week to week. We are going to be covering shows such as maybe White Lotus Season 3, definitely The Last of Us Season 2, and possibly the new Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man TV shows. And there are a few other films coming out. I think the biggest film coming out, I guess, within February is going to be Captain America, Brave New World. But there's a few interesting films coming out towards the end of January that we will definitely be covering. I can't think of the names right now, but definitely keep locked in on our socials in order to get that information. So with all that said, thank you for listening to our first ever episode of the new year. If you enjoy the show, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Stay connected with us by following us on Twitter, Instagram, all the social media garbages for your latest updates. That was Devin, and I'm Christian, signing off. And remember, life is like a movie, so go out there and make it a blockbuster.
Peace.